number of surprises. Race 2 is going to be just as dramatic, I should imagine. Teams and riders have gone away, had a chance to work on their setup, make any tweaks, any changes, have a bit of a confidence chat, maybe if they need that, with their rider coaches, and they get to do it all again. And, well, as I say, that the sun starting to poke through the clouds around this beautiful Circuit de la Comunitat Valenciana Ricardo Tormo circuit, named after the double 50cc World Championship champion. As you say there, 9 left corners, 5 right. Particularly tricky is when they come through corners 1, 2, 3, and then flick it right for the first time through turns 4 and 5. And also the wonderful turn 13, where riders are just spinning up that rear wheel, getting on the brakes into turn 14 before hitting the back straight. So, qualification-wise, it is the same grid as we had this morning. As I mentioned earlier, it's a simple case of they get 2 qualifying sessions on the Friday, and the best time from either of those qualifying sessions dictates who will be on the grid and the position on the grid even. And obviously, at the same time, they stick with that grid for race 2.
Yep, and it is a bit cooler today. As you said, Luke, the clouds are a bit more. They're starting to burn off now. There is also a bit of a wind, which can hide the heat, as my skin unfortunately found out yesterday. But, you know, we saw in race 1, in all 3 classes, that the fastest laps of the race were actually faster than the pole times, because obviously tyres, they don't work very well when they're cold, and they don't work very well when they're hot. They like to be at a very certain temperature range, and it looks like the race will be within that temperature range, so expect a very fast race.
And possibly it's to play out very differently from the one this morning, purely because of that. Everything is going to be so different. If the riders got used to it this morning, it's going to behave, the bike's going to behave very differently under them this afternoon. So, yeah, should be extremely interesting. We kicked off today's action at 11 o'clock with the first Moto2 race, and, yeah, this is the second one coming up. And I think to see a repeat of the first race would probably be, I don't know, it could be even more dramatic. It could be closer. That's what I think in this race.
Yeah, I certainly think it will be close. We saw one rider, as we say, we won't spoil the exact results, but we saw one rider break away after a bit of a dramatic opening couple of laps. But, you know, there were some crashes, and some of those crashes were riders who should have definitely been involved in that podium fight. So, if they can stay on, I think that fight, certainly for second and third, will be much fiercer. But here is the man of the moment, Eric Granado. We said we weren't going to spoil it, but there are the results. He was, of course, the winner of race 1, an absolutely dominant victory. Had a bit of a difficult first lap, dropped 4 places, but then did recover. And then once he was at the front, he just sprinted away with it.
Yeah, he really did. And he looked a class above, didn't he? So smooth, so good. And you know, confidence will be flowing through that young man now ahead of race 2. And there's Stephen Odendahl. We mentioned so often the bridesmaid never having taken a race win in this series, never actually been the riders, I'd say. But starting from second on the grid, he'll have made a few changes. I know that AGR team, they're very professional, obviously, operating in the World Championship
team,
yeah. You know, that they're not going to take that standing still. They're not lying down. They're going to try and fight back in race 2. And always a happy, cheerful face around the paddock. Stephen and his girlfriend Denise are holding the umbrella. And fiancé, I should say. Sorry, she'll beat me up for saying that. I should always get it right. I believe they got engaged towards the end of last year, didn't they? So, and she travels all around the world following him race, which is pretty awesome, because last year he was competing in the South African 600 Championship as well and won it.
He is as well. Okay, here is some big news that we have just had come through. Obviously, Nagashima, the Japanese rider for the IO team, he was one of the big crashes in the first race. He got up, he was holding his wrist, so we were a bit skeptical. He had a similar crash at the first race, but there you can see his empty grid slot. It does not look like the Japanese rider will be taking place, and I do not think that boy in the white shoes there will be running instead of him. So we will be one rider down. Unfortunately, Nagashima, as we were saying, was one of those big riders that we were expecting big things from, but expect some more to come through. Here we have Alan Tesher with a nice little message for Florian Marino, a stock 1000 rider who had quite a nasty crash at the Assen Round World Superbike. I think they've just finished race 2 there. Florian Marino has been operated on and is okay. Alan Tesher here, third in the first race on that NTS T Pro machine. A great result for him and the machine making its European debut.
Yeah. Brilliant debut for him, as you say. And then we move on to number 87. It is Remy Gardner. Now, well, he showed so much in that first race, didn't he, Harry? It looked like he was going to be on for the race win, but just got a bit too excited. Yeah,
definitely. You know, his ambition outweighed his talent, as a great other Australian once said.
Good Australian saying.
But luckily, Remy Gardner, clearly okay. You know, he showed that he has the pace. Maybe not to battle for the win with Granado, but he had the pace to battle for the podium. And mistakes like that are expected of rookies. You know, it's all about learning. This is a 2-year program. This team does have links to a World Championship team. And he and his dad, Wayne Gardner, are hopeful of Remy having some wild cards. I'm sure that Wayne would probably give it a go, but I'm not sure at his age it'd be.
But For him as well, as you say, not exactly the greatest year in the World Championship last year in the Moto2 Championship. Running with the back markers, I know he had a great result with Philippine, I think he finished 10th, didn't he? But, you know, to be back dicing it at the front, it's what you want to do as a racer. No matter what they say, I don't mind being at the back, it's a growing thing, you want to be at the front. And here's another man who impressed me, not only with his excellent livery, but with his ride in race 1, finishing 4th. It was Federico Fellini on the Chiatti Kalex.
Yep, matching his best result from last year, and he's one who could take advantage of Nagashima not being here, starting 6th. He does now have open track in front of him. Obviously, he does start a bit behind, being on the 2nd row, but not having a rider in front will be a huge advantage. He also has that inside line into turn 1. Could be some big things.
Yeah, definitely. Watch him fly off the line on that Team Chiatti Kalex, as I say, the Italian from Bologna. 9th last year, riding a Suter, so not a huge difference. Obviously, he's adjusting well to the Kalex this year.
Yeah, pretty quick adaptation. We've seen lots of riders, like Dominic Agata in the World Championship. He struggled to adapt to the Kalex. No such problems for the Italian.
And here we have Cavalieri, Samuel Cavalieri, the Team Stylo bike, which obviously is done in the Petronas colours. He's technically a teammate to Ramdan Rosley, who crashed out the first race, didn't he, Ramdan? But Cavalieri, an excellent 5th place in his...
Top rookie.
Top rookie, yeah, in his debut in the championship. And, well, you can't ask more, really. If you're a team manager, you've got a young guy coming in, and he goes and finishes ahead of everybody else who's debuting. That's brilliant. So he came through the Italian ranks, raced CIV last year, and brilliant result for him.
Yeah, really strong start to the year, and I could see him on 1 or 2 podiums, especially late in the season. Maybe when we return to Valencia, he'll have a whole season of experience under his belt, and obviously he'll have settings and experience at Valencia. So that last round of the year, it's good to bookend the season because we can really see some riders make some big improvements. Here we have number 34, Xavier Pinache. He was unfortunately caught up in Nagashima's crash in the first race and was unable to remount. He is the highest Spanish rider on the grid in 8th place, so he'll be hoping to do his country proud in his home championship.
Yeah, as you say, unfortunately caught out in that incident on the first lap, turn 2, wasn't it? Was it 4 bikes went down, so he'll be desperate to make amends. The great thing about having 2 races in one day is if you do that, you get taken out or you make a mistake, you have the opportunity to come back and fight again, which is what we like.
Yep, unfortunately for Nagashima, as we say, he has sustained an injury. Not sure exactly what it is. I'd almost certainly say it's something with the wrist after we saw him getting up.
And there's Ramdan Rosley we're going to come to now. Ramdan Rosley did crash out of that first race, but he has obviously seems fine. The bike looks fine. We were tired, didn't he? Not crash, apologies. So, oh no, sorry, he was involved in that crash. I'm so sorry, I'm getting confused. I'm looking at my wrong notes. The 20-year-old Malaysian rider then, so 0 points in the first race. And, well, again, he'll be looking to bounce back, having finished 12th overall last year.
And he was looking strong. He was inside the top 5 before he was caught out, unfortunately. So he could be another one to watch if he can make another good start. That bike, that team's brought through riders like Hafiz Siren. They clearly know how to spot Malaysian talent. They're all about bringing through Malaysian talent.
And he clearly likes it here. He was 7th in race 1 at the final round of the season last year in Valencia. So likes the circuit and he's hoping to go better this round. Now we stick with, Indonesian rider now, Dimas Eki on the Astra Honda Kalex. Dimas Eki, unfortunately, another of the riders that didn't finish that first race when he was riding really strongly, wasn't he? He was up in the top 6, I think, at one point.
Yeah, again, another one who was having a really strong race and made just a small mistake. And you can see that with some of these newer riders is that, it is a lot of pressure being at the front of a race, and sometimes they're a bit too tense. Sometimes they try to open the gas just a touch too early to stay with those guys ahead, and it can end in disaster.
Interesting strapping he has in his hands there. Seemed like some special inner glove to wear. I wonder if it plays support to stop the calluses happening.
I know that some riders definitely do wear various products to try and help their hands, because obviously, gripping these bars, it might be fine riding to work on your bike, but racing it can be quite brutal on your hands.
Now, Senna Yamada, he started as he is in this race from 11th last time, faded to 15th, but still picked up a championship point. Having moved up from the Moto3 CV last year to the Moto2 Championship, it's a great start, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately it seems like...
more a bit, I suppose, but...
Yeah, it seems like Yamada is following a very similar pattern to what he had in Moto3, where he'd qualify very well, but then unfortunately fade during the race. We spoke about it a bit in Moto3, that the Japanese style of racing traditionally is sort of waiting for your opponents to make a mistake, whereas as opposed to being a bit aggressive. There's obviously some who've broken that mold. Noriyuki Haga, clearly one of the most aggressive riders around, but Yamada still maybe needs to get a bit more aggressive, I think.
Yeah, check out some underbone racing from Asia if you want to see aggressiveness. I think they're trying to bring that into their riding, aren't they? But yeah, and here is Eric Granato's teammate completing the 4th row, Xavi Cardelas, in the Promo Racing Kalex, as you mentioned, Andorran team team with an Andorran rider, and he managed to finish 9th. So pretty much a good result from him, improving 4 places from his position on the grid. Well, they're going to head off on their warm-up lap very shortly as the teams are being asked to leave the grid. I think they'll be given that minute warning. And we can talk you through the track, because it is a wonderful circuit here at Valencia, and it's designed just to create amazing racing, really, isn't it? It's fast, it's flowing, it's got the slower corners, it's got the incredible turn 13 and a 786-metre straight.
Yep, and it's also excellent for fans. You know, it's what they call a stadium circuit, so you can see pretty much every corner. Here's Bertrand Thibault. He had a great race for 8th on the Suto, a really strong result from the French rider with one of the smaller teams in the grid.
I love his livery of that team as well, the black and yellow, quite simple with the white touches, but looks really striking when they're out on track and when you see the bike in pit lane. And yeah, Thibault Bertin, you know, he was 10th overall last year, finished 8th in Valencia in race 1 of the final round of last season. So obviously likes this track. 2014 Superstock 600 champion here in the CEV, 28-year-old Frenchman. And as we say, it looks like they are finally getting everybody off the grid. So these guys will be heading out on their warm-up lap. And
yep, and just once again, you did see that spot in 3rd that was vacant. That's because Nagashima is not racing, so expect some guys to make some big moves throughout the field.
And we're just seeing that Louis Rossi having some issues getting the Transformers bike started, but looks like he has now. We had that. Was that him in the first race? A similar thing. Exactly that, where they had to push it forward and then push it back. It was definitely a rider around the same place on the grid. So let's just run you through quickly the starting grid for the second Moto2 European Championship race of 2016. Eric Gennaro on pole from Stephen Odendahl with Tetsuka Nagashima. Alan Teschez at the second row. Remy Gardner in 5th, and Federico Fellini completes row 2.
Yeah, and Samuel Cavalieri, he is leading the 3rd row ahead of Pinash and Ramdan Rosley, with Dimas Eki starting the 4th row ahead of Senna Yamada and Xavi Carlos. A nice mix of nationalities there.
Very much so. Thibault Bertin heads up row 5 ahead of Louis Rossi. 2 French riders together. Thomas Six-Vartsen completes row 5, and someone's being pushed off the grid. Is that Louis Rossi?
Yeah, that's Louis Rossi. It seems like he's been unable to start the bike, so it looks like he will start from pit lane.
Jason, you're right there, starting from 21st. He got in the points, obviously, last time, so a good ride from the American. Will be hoping for the same. Brenner, Ruhu, Lopez, row 8, and Bernardi, Thibault going, and even of the first of the Russians on row 9. Alexis Gonzalez starts row 10. Paul Curran crashing out of the first race, and it's Louis Rossi and is that
Dimas Eki will both be starting from pit lane, it seems. We saw in the first race that Anna Carrasco and a couple of other riders got caught out by the start lane procedure. Obviously, they do have to wait for the last bike to go past before they can start, so big disappointment. Hopefully they won't make the same mistake. I have just gotten the tyre sheet through. Yet again, everyone on the same tyres.
Everyone on the same tyre. That's
and
brilliant.
The same tyres they had in race 1. All the same compound.
That's good. The conditions have changed greatly. It's definitely warmed up out there, even though you can see there's some areas of the track are under cloud, but it is a blue sky here, and temperatures are around 26 degrees air temperature. Louis Rossi still can't get that Transformers bike started in pit lane. Bit of a nightmare for him. And it looks like Eki hasn't got his started either. There might be an issue with Eki's bike because he's actually pulled into his pit.
Yeah, looks like that team there is, just as we peer out of our window, they are doing some extensive work to what looks like the gear shifter or something, but here we have all the grid filtering through on their warm-up lap to get ready to start from the grid.
The Transformers, it looks like, has finally started. He's getting to the end of pit lane. Will he have to start from pit lane now, I believe?
Yes, certainly have to start from pit lane, so he will be starting from the back and having to charge through. In race 1, he did, as we say, make a good charge through the field. Louis Rossi had started in 14th and did get up inside that top 10, so he is clearly capable of fighting through, but starting dead last is a very different task.
Keep an eye out as well. Louis Rossi, as we mentioned, he fought through brilliantly to take 6th, but Thomas Six-Vartsen on the Nobby H43 Talisker H43 bike, the Norwegian rider finishing in very, very creditable 7th when he starts from 15th on the grid. So a lot of riders, as you say, had brilliant race 1s. Maybe it was a little bit down to the uncertainty, but we'll have to see.
Yep, definitely. There are still a lot of unknowns going into this race. You know, can Remy Gardner do it over full race distance?
No, I reckon Gardner, if he hasn't re-hurt himself, it didn't look like he had, could be a real threat in this race, because he was a little bit ragged, a little bit wild in that first race. He might have calmed down a bit now. Race 2, probably had a chat with his dad saying, listen, son, you know, bank a podium if that's the situation. But it'd be interesting. And it is Dimas Eki. It looks like,
there's Louis Rossi waiting on pit lane.
And Dimas Eki might have to withdraw from the race if they can't get that bike going.
Yeah, just at the top left-hand corner of your shot there as we pan over to the grid. There's now a couple of open spaces on that grid, so we could see some big charges.
Anyone coming through from the 2nd or 3rd row. They've got, as you see, the space there. Nagashima not taking his place due to the injuries he sustained in an accident in race 1 when the red flag man walks off. We are ready for race 2 of the Moto2 European Championship and the lights will come off. They're 1 to 3 seconds before they go out, and the lights are out, and we're going again. A great start from Odendahl. Will he get the whole shot again down into turn 1? They're all away cleanly, and yet Odendahl, look at him pouring on the gas into turn 1. Ramdan Rosley up the inside. Is he going to take third? Slots into fourth nicely.
Remy Gardner, another good start from the Australian as he sits third. Louis Rossi and Demis Eki being held a long time there, and finally they wait. They don't make the same mistake Anna Carrasco did, so they hopefully won't get black flagged, but they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, looking back on that, I didn't realise at Carrasco start she just went, didn't she? When the rest of the guiders had gone past. So it is Granado that leads.
Yep, a great start from the Brazilian. We saw him sprint away in the first race, but Odendahl's trying to keep him in nice and close. Odendahl on that red bike with that beautiful yellow helmet.
And it's the same four, really, the protagonist from race 1. It is Granado from Gardner, sorry, from Odendahl with Gardner, and then Alan Tesha in fourth. Pinsach made his way up into fifth. Very impressive. From 8th on the grid from the Spaniard.
Yep, and a good start from Ramdan Rosley so far, ahead of his teammate Cavalieri as they continue to make their way around. Granado looking nice and smooth, and looks like he's already opened up, what's that, 4 or 5 bike lengths on Odendahl. Odendahl really needs to get a hurry on. He now has Remy Gardner breathing down his neck as well.
No, exactly that. Odendahl does not want to let. Granado showed in the last race he was almost lapping half a second quicker than everyone by the end of it. Odendahl cannot afford to give him a head start like this. He needs to get up front and mix it up with him, maybe try a few overtaking manoeuvres just to slow him down. Otherwise, he is going to disappear, and it looks like the case. But Remy Gardner, I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this race. And Tesha, and as you mentioned, Xavi Pinsach, wow, didn't expect that from him. Okay, race 1.
Got taken out.
Got taken out, didn't he? So we didn't get to see his pace, but yeah, thanks for filling in the gap. A bit of a cough, and it was perfect timing. But yes, so it is. Granado leads across the line for lap 1, and he's 7/10 ahead already.
Already a big gap for there. It looks like either Odendahl's made a bit of an advantage over Gardner, or Gardner's dropped back a bit. Odendahl fighting the front end of that bike. I was watching out there yesterday, and almost every lap Odendahl was really having to fight over those rumble strips, really using every inch of this Valencia circuit.
He really does have that bike move around a lot under him. Is it a case of he likes it like that? Do you think he's struggling with it? It's a mix, maybe a little bit of half dozen of one and half a dozen of the other. Oh, and we're ready. We've got to ride it down.
Yep, big misfortune there.
That's Alex Bernardi on the suit of the Cruciani racing bike. Team run by the X500cc Italian racer Oliviero Cruciani.
Very distinctive bike with those silver and day-glow green leathers. Here is a man in another day-glow green. It is Eric Granado, who is continuing to sprint away at the front. Looks like a perfect repeat of the first race with the Brazilian out the front, but not Eric Granado, Stephen Odendahl now has several riders behind him. It looks like Panache not quite able to stay with that those 3 riders fighting for second. As we say, it is Odendahl leading from Gardner with Alan Tesha behind.
Oh, that's a huge race. It's Granado.
Granado's crashed out of the race.
Oh, race 1 winner from pole, starting race 2 from pole. He looked so comfortable. He was over a second in the lead. Look, I think he's fine. He's just devastated.
Yeah, absolutely distraught. You know, that was an unforced error.
Oh.
Well, hopefully we can get a full replay of what happened in that crash. It looks like here it is.
That's coming out of 5, isn't it?
That's a big high side.
Ow, maybe it's not just shape, because that could have damaged his shoulders. But, oh, disaster. And he wasn't having to push on. He was already so far in the lead. Yeah, he's staying down. Hopefully, Granado will be all right. But that puts Odendahl into the lead. Remy Gardner, Alan Tesha. We're going to have a new race winner in Moto2, aren't we?
And all of those 3 riders will have seen that crash, seen that Granado's down. They'll know exactly what the situation is. So now they just need to keep their cool and not get too excited about fighting for victory.
And Xavier Pinsach, what a position to be in. The 19-year-old from Girona. He wildcarded at Valencia last year. He's been a World Supersport rider. Oh, and he's in pain, isn't he?
Yeah, but he is up and okay, being helped, walked off. Certainly had the wind knocked out of him.
You can see the impact on the left hip there. Yeah, that's it's gonna hurt, but hopefully it's okay. Oh, what a big moment there from Tesha, who has to stand the bike up early. This is getting very fun now. As you say, temperatures warming up, track getting a bit greasier. And the bike's starting to move around, but it is Odendahl who leads at the moment from Remy Gardner with Alan Tesha third and Xavier Pinsach in fourth.
Great ride from Gardner. This is exactly what he was showing in the first race. Able to stick with Odendahl, have 1 or 2 nibbles when he's able to. But as you said before, no doubt his father, Wayne Gardner, the 87 world champion, will have had a word to his son, said, I've been in your position a couple of times. It's best just to keep it cool, either wait for your moment or settle for second. It's still very early days.
Well, if you think about it, okay, obviously in this moment, if he was to have, to push too hard in this race, he would go away, having been fighting for the race win and the podium with 0 points, which would be a disaster in your opening round of the season. So exactly that, collect the podium. But I also think Remy if there's a chance for the victory, it isn't going to
Having had the year Remy had in Moto3 last year, both he and Wayne were really upset with how they went. They know that Remy is capable of more.
He's showing more potential in 2 races, isn't he?
This will be a huge confidence boost for Remy. You know, he's back to fighting where he should be, towards the front.
Massive gap then between Federico Fellini, who's just taken Ramdan Rosli, and so has Thibaut Bertin. Fellini is over 5 seconds almost back from Pinsach in 4th. So it is these 4 riders at the front who have broken away already, and a huge battle going on there for 5th though behind him. That is superb. In fact, they're not riders separated by more than 2/10, pretty much down the field into 16th with Senna Yamada.
Yeah, nice ride this by Odendaal, just trying to stay nice and calm. Odendaal is by far the most experienced rider of that leading trio in the Moto2 class, you know. He hasn't really been in this situation before. He's definitely been in the podium hunt a couple of times in the Sev. As we say, he's yet to take his first win. If he can remain calm, we could see 2 first-time winners. Obviously, Granado winning the first race, unfortunately crashing out here of the second one.
Well, the beauty is none of these riders in this race have won a Moto2 CV race. The only one that had was Granado after race 1. So we're going to have a new winner, which is, it's great for these guys, isn't it? I mean, look at this. So Xavier Pinsach, as we say, you know, coming up from, well, Super Sport, he did a wildcard, ex-Red Bull rookie, real chance to make a name for himself in this championship, and, well, as you say, taken out through no fault of his own in the first race. He's on a good bike. That's Argobank CNS Motorsport Tech 3.
Yeah, the bike that Vierge rode to a championship challenge last year. Obviously, Vierge did have a crash which pretty much ruined his championship because he was able to match Pons, trade wins with each other.
Really, really were a 2-horse race last year, weren't they? And it was exciting to watch, but I think we could be in for a similar one this year. Just Granado, absolutely gutted for him crashing out. But look, Odendaal just opening up a couple of little as they come across to complete lap 4. It's 4/10 of a second, with Tesha a further 6 takes further back in 3rd. And Pinsach, well, he's starting to drop back on 6 takes. And yeah, it's 4 seconds to Fellini, and then another 2 seconds now for Thibaut Bertin in 6th. But Thibaut Bertin then has a stream of riders behind him. Ramdan Rosli, Cavalieri, Jardella, Sigvartsen, Ruhu, Enderlein, Uraib, Dowland, Sanchez, and Yamada now, all within pretty much 2 or 3 tenths of each other.
Yeah, and all of the leading 3 that last night had a very similar pace, high 137s. Odendaal with a 137.8, so just a 10th faster than Remy Gardner there. But no one's going to be breaking away if they keep this up.
Yeah, in fact, it is, as you're saying, very, very close at the front. And I think what you see here is these guys will push and pull a little bit. Maybe we'll see Pinsach drop off, but Tesha, he didn't quite have the pace run with them in the first race. But I get the feeling that with Gardner and Odendaal, they're so evenly matched, but such stronger in different areas.
Remy Gardner up the inside as Odendaal runs a bit wide. Remy Gardner now leads this race in just his 2nd ever intermediate class appearance in the Sev.
What was I just saying? You know, get the impression that
is there a crash behind? It looked like someone got flicked off their bike. I'm not quite sure if Tesha,
Pinsach both through just a big moment maybe. But here is the move. Gardner, just as I was saying, you know, these guys very evenly matched. Maybe he thinks time to have a little look at the front, dips up the inside. Nice clean move there.
Yep, Odendaal running a bit wide, so allowing Gardner just slip through. As you say, maybe it was Odendaal, you know, wanting to say, okay, Remy, you have a go at the front. You know, it's harder to lead a race. If you're in second, you know what the pace is. You know, you can maybe ride at 99%. Whereas, you know, if you're at the front, you don't really know what the conditions are like, don't know how hard to push to stay ahead.
It's easy to manage the tyres as well, isn't it, running behind someone, because they're having to take all the risks. Odendaal has a look up the inside, but I think, as you say, for a couple of laps now, he'll just be happy to sit in there. And Tesha on that last lap was 6 tenths further back. So it really is these front 2 now in a bit of a battle, should we say, for the race, although Tesha's not letting them get away.
No, Odendaal just trying to keep it nice and tight and clean behind Remy Gardner there, you know, just wait for an opportunity to present itself and see what this rookie Australian can do at the front.
And at the back, just so you know, Dimas Eki and Louis Rossi have got their first scout. The 2 guys who were forced to start from pit lane were over 11 seconds back after literally at the start. Anna Carrasco, they've just managed to take. Carrasco drops down to 27th. She'll just be hoping not to finish the race. She'll hope to finish the race after a black flag in the first race for ignoring a ride-through penalty. But here we are. Gardner then leading the way from Stephen Odendaal. These 2 definitely breaking away now, Harry. It's quite clear at the front. Tesha, he'll hang in there. He's lapping a couple of tenths slower, I think, a lap. But I think this is what the battle will have for the race win.
Yeah, it looks like Tesha's able to keep the pace of, you know, whoever's leading the race, but never really close in on it. Obviously, as we say, it is his first race with that NTS frame, so still some work to do probably.
And as we look at this, Gardner, I'm just fascinated by the different lines they're taking. Look at Odendaal, letting it run a little bit more onto the curbs than Gardner does, and his bike, as you say, would run even through there. Gardner's so much wider, carrying a little bit more speed, leaving that door open, but Odendaal decides not to as they come through to complete. lap 6.
And the difference in lines could very much well be the fact that, you know, Remy has been in Moto3. He has been forced to ride that Mahindra where you had to carry the corner speed for that bike to be competitive. So maybe he's just, you know, trying to get that. Odendaal, again, looking up the inside, not close enough, just staying within, you know, within a bike length or two of Gardner as Odendaal sets the fastest lap of the race.
I couldn't agree with you more, actually. It was what I was noticing from the racing lines. He is riding more traditional Moto3 lines. Look, longer, sweeping lines. The bike is on the edge of the tyre a little bit more, but it's you know, it's not the big V that I think Odendaal's more used to on the Moto2 bike, which obviously gets more pronounced as you get bigger in capacity. Superbikes pretty much run in, stop, brake, and start, go again. But yeah, it's look at that. Even there on the entry to that corner, it's a good couple of meters wider, and it's interesting because they will, I think, throughout the lap be stronger in certain areas, and Odendaal will be stronger in the others. So it should be a very interesting battle now as we're on lap 7 of 19 of this second Moto2 European Championship race of 2016.
The lines are also going to make it harder for Odendaal to pass. It looks like he was having a bit of a look just there as we watch Alan Tesher on that NTS bike, and it looks like no, Odendaal didn't quite get through. As we see again, Remy Gardner taking a nice wide sweeping line, making it very difficult for Odendaal to get past, because, you know, Remy will be getting on the gas exactly at the same point that Odendaal does, and he'll just be blocking, so it'll be so hard to get past.
You're right. I saw this a lot last year again with Carmelo and Kenny, for instance. Kenny took a lot bigger sweeping lines, as we saw earlier in the first race. Carmelo Morales and Superbikes take some nice tight lines on that Yamaha R1M, and yeah, it's so interesting to see because they play to different strengths, as you say. But the advantage definitely with Remy, because it's hard to pass when you look. Although he seems to leave the door open, he obviously sweeps back through, and you're not going to do him under braking if he's taking those lines.
Yeah, there we see Odendaal
big
again,
moment for
up
Odendaal.
on the rumble strips.
Needs to be careful with that. He doesn't want to, whatever he do, kind of throw it away, because he'd be on for a double podium here today, which would be a brilliant result. And again, he has a look, but as you said, look at Gardner getting the back out.
Yeah,
superb.
Yeah, it looks like Odendaal's always 2-3 bike lengths behind at that first corner. Tries to make it work in some of these tighter sections, but just can't seem to find a way through on Remy just yet.
And, you know, full kudos to Alan Tesher. We keep thinking he's getting dropped at the back of this pack. He's reduced it back now to 5/10. And he's doing superbly. Pinsatch now over a second back. And Jason Uribe, what a start. The American, 14th in the first race. He's gone from 21st to 12th. What a sensation this guy is. And he's lapping quicker than quite a few of the guys in front of him as well.
Yep, and Uribe, as you say, is Stephen Odendaal's teammate, so they will be able to help each other. Probably at this stage in the championship, Odendaal helping Jason a bit more than the other way around.
Brilliant stuff from Uribe, though, and it could be a double-point scoring finish from the American on his debut. So then, here comes Odendaal having a look at the inside of Gardner now. As you say, a little bit of a game of cat and mouse now, because Odendaal's even finding it hard to show him a wheel apart from coming down the straight.
Yeah, it looks like Remy's staying strong at the front. They close up obviously under braking, but then Remy does just have that advantage out of the corners, as we said, with those sweeping lines carrying a bit more corner speed, whereas Odendaal is trying to, you know, get it a bit tighter in, but with Remy's sweeping lines, he just can't find a way through.
Through those tight technical areas, you're right, Odendaal closes up massively, doesn't he? But then, look, as you see, perfect example of the two lines. It's like they're almost on different parts of the racetrack there. And then Odendaal swings it back out wide. But yeah, do you know what? I think Tesher might be feeling a little bit more confident on that last lap round. He was the quickest rider of the three. But the quickest rider on track was actually Federico Fellini. Now, he's 3.5 seconds back from the leader. Let's see what that gap is now as they come across the line to complete lap 8. Because if he can start closing down on Pinsatch, we could see some movement further back through the field. And yeah, Fellini definitely closing, 1:37.9, quick pace, and yet Alan Tesher, quickest man out of those front three again, a 1:37.8. The other two exactly the same lap time between Gardner and Odendaal, a 1:37.920 exactly.
Not too bad, and it looks like, yeah, this front three have all bunched up a bit more. Odendaal did have a couple of looks through as it did get a bit hairy on the exit of turn 1, but Remy's still staying steady.
Yeah, as we say, so these three battling it out for the podium. Pinsatch in the background is just dropping back, just lapping 2 or 3 tenths slower. So while he's had a brilliant start, and if he keeps on lapping at that pace, he should remain in the top 8. It's just starting to drop back through the field now, and he's starting to fall into the hands of Federico Fellini. But let's get back to the front, because Gardner managing this race superbly. It's been a long time, I mean, apart from race 1 a couple of hours ago, that Gardner has been at the front of a race, managing a race, and as you said, completely different than battling it out mid-pack. So big challenge for Remy here, and he's really answering to it, especially because he's got 3 fractured fingers in his left hand and a nasty crash in the first race.
Odendaal has to have a nibble here soon. You know, he's right over the back of Remy. He has to try and get past him, try and force Remy offline and trying to slide ahead of him. But it's through this fast turn 13 that Remy does seem to be so strong with that faster sweeping line, and then able to, you know, keep his line going. Odendaal there taking a slightly wider line around the final corner to try and get better drive onto this home straight and hopefully use the slipstream to get past Remy.
This is where he's going to do it into turn one, isn't it? Is there any chance? But he pulls out that slipstream very early. He's got belief in the power of his AGR Calyx, but just no, can't get past Gardner. And just look how close Tetch has got now. He is on the back wheel of Odendaal, and here is Pinsach just starting to strop back. And again, Federico Fellini, well, he was by far the quickest rider on track last time around, 1:37.7. He's 5 seconds behind Gardner at the front, but he's brought the gap down to Pinsach in 4th by over half a second on that lap.
Nice and smooth.
Oh, this is building up, isn't it, superbly between these three. Tesha, I think, more than anything else, gaining confidence on this new bike, new team. Actually showed a lot of experience by not throwing it down the road in race 1, maybe not pushing too hard until he gets completely adjusted. And, well, he's going to fancy... Oh,
Bit of a mistake there from Remy Gardner. Shake of the head from the Australian. Stephen Odendaal says thank you very much as he nips into the lead.
Now Tessa's got the drive through as well. Is he going to come up the inside?
No, the Australian managed just hold it through turn 13 and around the outside. Oh, just manages to get ahead. Now, this is a big test for both Odendaal and for Gardner. Can Odendaal, you know, extend this gap and make it work? And can Remy Gardner rally? We saw Remy make a mistake in race 1 and his crash came very soon after as he was frantically trying to catch up.
Exactly. He needs to bide his time. He's got the pace to run with Odendaal. Odendaal didn't get away when he was in the race before, but he doesn't want to try and push too hard. And he's also got the added pressure of Valencia on his back wheel. Odendaal, head down, really trying to make a break for it here now. This is his chance to secure his first win in the CEV Moto2 European Championship. Well, Remy Gardner, well, what a debut it's been from him. Just doesn't want to chuck it down the road, as you say. And here comes Tesha. Is he going to have a look into turn 1 on Gardner? Exactly. Frenchman pulls out the slipstream. He seems to have the drive there side by side.
Looks like Tesh will try to go up the inside. Whether it'll work, I don't know.
Gardner brilliantly late on the brakes. He is, I tell you, he is the last of the late breakers, isn't he? Because he really, really was late then. It looked like Tesha got past him, but here he comes again, Tesha. It's doing corner.
Beautiful move there by the Frenchman. Meanwhile, these two battling has allowed Odendaal to open up a fair bit of an advantage, now 0.7 of a second.
What have I been saying about Federico Fellini? On that lap, he was 4/10 quicker than the race leader, Stephen Odendaal. He is flying through the field. He's 5 seconds behind Odendaal, but he's taking half a second a lap off him. So could he be? It looks like he could definitely. You can see him in the background there. He's closing up on Pinsach in 4th already. So these guys at the front have something to worry about, because if Fellini can keep that pace going, 8 laps to go, he could pretty much be with him.
Yeah, certainly. It looks like Tesha has now opened up a bit of a gap on Remy and is trying to close in on Odendaal ahead. Remy a bit wide through that corner, a bit wider than usual even.
Yeah, Odendaal, as you say, opening up a few bike lengths. Tesha's through on Gardner. Maybe Gardner's thinking, you know what, I've had a few scares, I've had a few moments. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I was to get a podium. But Odendaal now, his gap at the front, well, it was 7/10 last time they came round. We'll check when they come round to complete lap 11 as he comes through turn 13 down. It's beautiful through there, isn't it? It's scary. Look at the back wheel sliding out there. Odendaal really getting the rear spinning up. Coming into turn 13 to complete lap 11. And, well, yeah, let's see if he has managed to make that gap over a second.
Well, again onto the rumble switch. You know, he got caught out there in the race last year. And, you know, if he's in the lead, maybe take a slightly tighter corner exit.
Exactly what I said. He's now over a second lead on Tesha, and Gardner is 6/10 further back from Tesha. Chevy Pinsach a further 2 seconds back. Fellini actually, well, he was a little bit slower at Odendaal on that lap, but he's still lapping in the 1:37, mid 1:37, so he's closing rapidly on these guys battling for the podium.
Yep, and it looks like Gardner has now dropped off the back of Tesha, and those top 3 are quite spread out.
Odendaal pulling the pin as well, setting the fastest lap on that last lap.
Yeah, Tesha 3/10 slower on that lap, so Tesha's really going to have to do something in these final 8 laps or 7 and a bit laps to try and catch up with Odendaal. But, you know, we saw with Granado that you can very easily make a mistake even if you don't have pressure behind you.
And there is Odendaal's fiancée Denise, as we were saying. Obviously worried because of the team, because he's in the race. Oh, and there's an accident there, and that is Senna Yamada, is that?
Yeah, it looks like Senna Yamada is one of those riders involved in that crash, so a really unfortunate incident for the Japanese rider. Not quite sure who that second bike is.
Here we go, looks like we've got a replay.
Bit of an ambitious line there.
Oh, poor Yamada. Very, very ambitious line from number 71, which is Pontus Dueland, the Swedish rider, who did really well in the first race, did he not? And unfortunately for him, yeah, came 11th. That was ambition outweighing talent by a long way. And unfortunately for Yamada, taken out after scoring a championship point in race 1. So, got it for the Japanese rider, but at the front, Odendaal, well, he looks in control now, doesn't he? Surely with 8 laps to go, or 7.5. He, as they complete lap 12, I should say, he now has his first race win within sight.
It's within sight, but, you know, as we say, not only with Granada, but also with Jonas Folger in Qatar in the World Championship. We saw Folger throw away, I think it was a 3-second lead with a mistake. And Odendaal still pushing at 137.1, which is not too far off, just half a second slower than his qualifying time that put him second on the grid. And to set a time like that on the 12th lap of the race, not too bad from the South African.
Best lap from Granada in race 1 was a 136.1 towards the start of the race. So yeah, as you're saying, to be doing that with 13 laps in the time. Ooh! But he almost high sides there. That looked very dodgy coming out of turn 5 even. Big moment. But Odendaal just seems to shrug these off. Whereas someone like Gardner is a little bit more affected by a moment and he's time to come down. He's just like, yeah.
Odendaal seems to be a bit more of an old-school Moto2 rider, especially in the World Championship. We saw Moto2 riders a lot more loose in the first few years of that championship. They've made it a bit more inline now, but Odendaal definitely likes it nice and loose. You know, we've seen him fighting the bike a lot, the rear end squirming around, sliding, especially into that turn 1. Him and Remy Gardner were doing some beautiful dancing with the rear ends of their bikes early in the race when they were together.
No, it's interesting because we're starting to see this just starting to separate out a little bit. Odendaal, Tesha, Remy Gardner in 3rd, but Chevy and Pinchach in 4th is closing on Gardner.
Yeah, I think Gardner's pace is dropping a fair bit, to be honest. Although Panache did set his fastest lap of the race last lap, so maybe he has the smell of the podium in his nostrils.
Very true. He does seem to be on a bit of a charge, and we still have Federico Fellini behind him going even quicker as well. So I don't think this 4th place is done and dusted, or 3rd place even, because look, they're definitely on a charge as they spread out though. So they've completed lap 14 of 90. Let's give you a rundown of the top 10. Odendaal leads from Tesha and Gardner, who you see running through there. Pinchach in 4th, Fellini 5th, Theobald Bertan in 6th, Xavi Cordella 7th, Cavalieri 8th, Sigvarsson 9th, and Ramdan Rosley in 10th, Jason Uribe in 11th.
Really good ride from the American. Absolutely incredible. And such a nice mix of nationalities. You know, we have a South African leading from a French rider, from an Australian, from a Spaniard, from an Italian, from a French rider, from an Andorran rider.
7 different nationalities in the top 7. That's incredible. And it is actually incredible when you think all around the world. It's the whole point of this Moto2 European Championship, bringing together the best talent. And they're once again running onto the curbs, not seeming to care. Stephen Odendaal, he has got this. It looks like quite wrapped up. His lead over 1.5 seconds. It should be closer to 2 seconds when they come round to complete lap 14. Dimas Eki and Louis Rossi, they're charging through the field. Those 2 riders from pit lane, 19th and 20th. Rossi's just taken Eki, 19th and 20th respectively, those 2 riders. Can they get into the points?
They're lapping significantly faster than the 3 riders ahead of them, so they could very quickly find themselves battling for 15th. Here we see a beautiful display of classic Moto2 style. Odendaal rear wheel just
stamping on the back brake, getting that rear wheel to come out to get it turned into that corner. That was beautiful, showing how they use it to actually slow the bike down as well as that back tire skipping across the ground. Simply incredible from Odendaal. Full points for style, most definitely.
Yeah, exactly. You know, now it's just a matter of Odendaal keeping his focus. You know, when you're having a lonely race like this, it may seem easy from the outside, but it's very easy to lose concentration if you're all alone. You know, you start thinking about, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? You know, oh, wonder how my girlfriend or my fiance is doing.
Wow, 7/10 for second. Sorry to interrupt there, Harry. But Pinchach took out 7/10 on Remy Gardner on that lap for 3rd, and Fellini is coming with him. Fellini, unbelievably, is now only 2/10 behind Pinchach. So those 2 riders are going to start attacking Remy Gardner the next couple of laps for that final podium spot. Gardner might have just relaxed a little bit too much.
Yeah, it looks like Gardner could maybe be running out a bit of steam here and starting to drop back, but, you know, it's all about learning from him. This is only his 2nd ever Moto2 race, you know, getting used to how his body reacts to the weight of the bike, you know, figuring out how tyres drop off and all that sort of thing. It's all part of the learning process.
And so, you know, update you on the Stock 600 Championship. The winner from race 1, Jacobo Quattaro, now in 14th position, is leading the stock riders out on track.
Remy Gardner looks like he's had a problem. His right foot is off the bike. He's now dropped behind Pinchach and Fellini, so Remy Gardner now down in 5th position. Big disappointment for the Australian. Not quite sure what the problem was. As I said, his right foot was off the bike.
And as you say, unknown territory for Gardner, having crashed out of race 1 just before this period. So maybe not used to the tyre wear on a Moto2 bike compared to a Moto3 last year. But that was a huge moment because, as you say, he was 1.8 seconds ahead of these guys at the start of the lap. He's now at least 4 seconds behind.
And this is now a battle for their first ever podium finish. Panache and Fellini both out for their first podium. Fellini having only previously ever finished 4th as the Italian goes up the inside. Nice tight line. Can't keep it in front though.
Now, this is really fascinating, as you say, because Fellini, I love the livery of that bike. It's so simple, but it just looks so striking. And Pinsach, as you say, they're in unknown territory, never battled for the podium before, and it would take a disaster for them not to be battling for it now. So these guys battling it out for third place. Out the front, Odendahl now 2.3 seconds in the lead. 5 seconds then back is, to Tesha. These guys are 5 seconds back from Tesha in battling for third. And oh no, there's a problem. But Fellini, as you say, he's done. Has Pinsach got a problem?
Yeah, it looks like Pinsach sit up and he pointed down to the bike as we were coming down the pit straight. Gardner was signalling to his team. So it looks like a couple of these riders are encountering problems. Not Federico Fellini, though, as the Italian is now comfortably in third place, potentially on his way to a first ever podium in the Sev.
Now, he is 5 seconds odd behind Tesha in second, so I think we can say first and second are bolted on, but brilliant ride from Fellini. Coming back, where did he start from? 6 on the grid, but dropped down quite considerably at the start. He's had to work his way through the field, and it's just been putting in lap after lap in the 137s, mid to low 137s. He's done really well. So Fellini on a charge, but I think that's as good as it's going to get for him now, but if he can secure his first podium, he'll be delighted.
Yep, certainly. Big thing for him, obviously. As I said in the first race, him and Gardner were meant to be in the World Championship, but unfortunately the team they had signed with dropped out. So a podium in the first race will certainly be satisfaction for Fellini, and hopefully Remy Gardner can take away some positives from this weekend, as he did show incredible pace early in the race.
Well, a 5th place finish. I'm sure if you'd have said to him at the start, you know, to be battling for the podium, he'd have taken that in these 2 races. But Gardner, depending on how slow he's going, he's got 9 seconds ahead of the next place, Thibaut Bertin in 6th. So surely he'll be okay unless he starts lapping terribly slow. But his last lap, he was 7 seconds slower, though. So there was obviously a moment, unless he keeps looking down. Now, that was Fellini looking down. Oh, it's Pinsach. Everyone's looking down at their bike now. What's going on?
Just making sure
third place. It was Fellini. He was having a look down.
Just making sure that everyone is okay. As we say, these leading 2 riders of Odendahl and Tesha are all okay, both sitting steady in first and second. Fellini continuing on in third as they filter across the line. Gardner is still in 5th, but he did set a 1:47 last lap, the rider behind, setting a 1:38. So it looks like Gardner will be lucky to just finish this race.
Yeah, he was 9 seconds ahead of him on the lap before, and now he's less than half a second, I'm guessing, ahead of... it's Xavi Cardelis who's having a ride through the Andorra, the Promo Racing team. Obviously seeing Granado, his teammate, go out, wanting to make up for it. So brilliant ride from Cardelis. Where did he start on the grid? He was 12th. So he's made it up into 6th and could be taking 5th of Gardner very, very shortly.
Yep, and this would be by far Cardelis' best race finish.
And Louis Rossi and Dimas Eckes is 17th and 18th now, respectively, just past Thibaut Garin and Ivo Lopez. Those guys desperate to battle for the points and the last point scoring position, but still, I believe, at least 18 seconds off the point. So, what with 2.5 laps to go, they're going a few 5-6 seconds quicker than everyone else around them, so it could be interesting.
It's going to be a big ask, and, you know, maybe 1 or 2 riders get a bit overly ambitious. Speaking of ambitious, Jason Urobe is now into 9th in just his 2nd race, as we say, having started from 21st on the grid. An absolutely incredible charge by the young American.
He has battled through that group, battling for 9th to take the lead of it, and it is superb stuff. Now, Odendahl crosses the penultimate lap, 2 left to go here in Valencia. Tesha, 2.8 seconds further back, 1st and 2nd, seem bolted on, although Odendahl will be his first win. Got to be a little bit nerve settling in. There is Federico Fellini. Came out of nowhere, mistake from Gardner. Pinsach dropping back has just meant that he is on for his first ever Moto2 European Championship podium too.
Yep, great result for him and the team, as we say. A fair few crashes for Fellini last year, but it looks like everything is now all okay for the Italian. He's clearly taken a step and is now very much enjoying this Kalex. You know, in the World Championship, the Kalex is the bike of choice, and it seems to be suiting the Italian.
So he's a 20-year-old from Bologna, as we say, last year on the Suter, 9th overall. He had 2 fourths, just missing out on the podium, Aragon. And he will be hoping to go one better, but who's that behind him? Is that Cardelis who has? Oh, we've had an incident. Pinsach has been done by Cardelis and Theobald. These guys... It must have been a backmaster they passed, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was one of the stock 600, but it does look like Pinsach has had some sort of issue and is now dropping back, much like Remy Gardner.
Dropping like a fly. He's
just
5 seconds behind Thibaut Bertin, so not sure what's happened to Pinsach. Definitely having problems. Sigvartsen's moved up to 7th. Good work from him. That makes Uribe, as you say, 9th position. Gardner now about to be caught by Uribe if he's not careful.
Yep, so Gardner just battling to stay upright. Unlike this man, Stephen Odendahl, who's now just cruising to victory as he builds up to the final lap as he comes onto the start-finish straight for the 2nd last time.
Wow. So Odendahl, his first CEV Repsol Moto2 European Championship victory in sight. Anna Carrasco ahead of him on the track. She is currently running in last, so that is the back marker, or yes, no, sorry, there is Anto Ermin, who we saw them pass earlier on the Stock 600 bike. So can Odendahl go on to take his first victory? The first three are across the line, and it's a huge gap. 7 seconds separates Teshet to Fellini in second and third, and there is Carrasco getting out of the way. Yep,
Carrasco doing well there to avoid Odendahl. Carrasco on the MVR bike, bit of a different bike, and as we said in the first race, she hasn't had basically any testing. So this first race is all about her getting experience, having previously raced in Moto3 for more than 3 seasons.
So what goes through your mind now, Harry? You've got about 6-7 corners left before your first victory in the championship. You know, you've done so well in, but not been able to take that top step of the podium. Surely it's just breaking point, apex, exit point. You just go through the basics, don't you?
Yeah, I think
3.5 second lead.
I think it's just try and stay upright. Speaking of staying upright, it does look like Pinsach has fallen as he's now dropping down our timing screens as every other rider crosses. Meanwhile, Remy Gardner was 11th on that last lap, so it looks like his problems continue. Although Gardner's still in the 146s,
Wow.
6 seconds slower than the riders around him.
He's going to lose a lot of positions because he's going to go out the points. All those guys behind him are in the second, but this is the last lap, and it's about this man, Alan Tesha, in second place. 3.5 seconds behind race leader Stephen Odendahl, but new bike, new team. Double podium for both of those guys, Odendahl and Tesha, would be a brilliant result.
I believe Odendahl will now be leading the championship, correct?
Yes, he was second, and he will be first with Tesha. We'll have third and a second place. So yes, Odendahl comes across the line, takes first victory in the Moto2 European Championship in the FIM CEV Repsol. Tesha second, and Federico Fellini will snatch that last podium spot, but brilliant for Odendahl. His first victory in the championship. He's been so close to victory before. Tesha, double podium today. Odendahl, double podium. Both of them pull over. Look, good friends. And Odendahl doing a burnout. Look, he's been waiting a long time for that, hasn't he, Harry, for that?
Oh! Contact at the first corner. Luckily, everyone stays upright.
Oh, that would have been to explain the damage to the bike to your team and crew chief for that. But no, a little bit. It wasn't the biggest burnout from Odendahl. He's like, wow, when did you come first, second, third? Brilliant for Fellini. And I look how much it means to him. I think it hasn't quite sunk in yet. And we've been watching, as you say, commentating for last year. It's a deserved victory. And we thought he'd be up there challenging for the title this year. It looks like he may be. I mean, obviously, Granado crashed out the race leading by over a second, but can't take it away from Odendahl. You can only beat what's in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. A great ride from him, and I'm now down off into Parc Fermé to get the South African's views on his first race win. So I'll catch everyone in a bit.
Alan Tesha there, as we said. Well, new team, new bike, the NTS T-Pro. Third place in race 1, second in race 2. Obviously wasn't really pushing for the race victory, stayed with Odendahl and the guys at the start, but didn't really need to. And Federico Fellini, well, he'll be actually kind of, I suppose, a little bit surprised. He was very, very quick mid-race, tailed off towards the end of the race, but it was problems to Gardner and Pinsach who were ahead of him. Gifted him the podium, and he won't be disappointed with that. The 20-year-old Italian, a brilliant podium to start his season in race 2. Javi Cardelas crossed the line in 4th. Theobald Bertin in 5th. Great result for the Frenchman. 6th Varts and 6th Jason Uribe, the American. Wow, 7th in his second race in the Moto2 European Championship. I thought he did brilliantly this morning by finishing in, I think it was 14th, grading 2 points. And yeah, now, look at that, in 7th. That's just absolutely superb work by the American. David Sanchez, 8th. Gabriel Ruhu, 9th. Max Enderlein, 10th. Ramdan Rosley in 11th after crashing out of race 1. And the leading super stock rider for the second race in a row is Jacobo Cretaro. He will be leading the championship with 50 points as the stock 600. Then Remy Gardner did finish in the points. He managed to cross the line in 13th, race leader at 1 point. Obviously having some major issues. Cavalieri 14th, and Dimas Eki, he did it, starting from pit lane. He managed to nab that last championship point ahead of Louis Rossi in 16th. Dimas Eki must have taken about 4 people on that last lap, and he only beat Rossi to the line by a 10th. Those two involved in a superb race-long battle. Marcel Brenner 17th, Ivo Lopez 18th, Theobald Gorin 19th, Dowland 20th, Michael Aquino crossing in 22nd. Pinsach, I've got down as finishing in 23rd, Anna Carrasco 24th, and Anto Eramin did finish in 26th. So, Stephen Odendahl goes to Parc Fermé. It's not the first time he's been there, but it will be the first time he's parked up in the number 1 spot, and he's revving that engine away. I think you might see a very delighted, maybe slightly relieved South African face. Look what it means to his AGR team. He's been on the cards for so long as a real potential race winner, potential maybe stepping up, as we know when he has done, into the World Championship, potential future world champion, very talented South African rider, and absolutely delighted to take his first victory in the Moto2 European Championship here in the CEV Repsol. Take nothing away, as we say, from Alan Tesher and Federico Fellini. Rode great races, and it's exactly what we were talking about earlier, about how you use that time from race 1 to race 2 to really set up your bike. Hopefully Eric Granado is absolutely fine after that nasty high side earlier, but it goes to show you can only race what's in front of you, and Odendaal takes that victory, and I think he'll be rather delighted and getting weighed, and Harry will be chatting to him very, very shortly, and I think we'll be finding very hard to wipe the smile off his face, and who would want to after that victory. So, as I say, Stephen Odendaal taking his first victory in race 2, following on from his second place in race 1. And my maths isn't superb, but I reckon that's 45 points, and he should be leading the championship from Alan Tesher, who will have 16 plus 20, 36 points. So a 9-point lead then for Stephen Odendaal. You could hear me do the working in my head. My maths teacher would have been proud. So Harry is going to be grabbing Stephen Odendaal very, very shortly to have a chat with him. Can't wait to see what the South African says after his first victory. And we'll be crossing down to Parc Fermé very shortly. I can see him beaming on the camera already. Let's see what he's got to say.
A lot of pressure from Remy.
Yeah, you know, the mistake from Granado, like, I knew when I was behind Remy, it was just a bit easier to follow him than Granado. But, you know, I just want to say thanks to the team. They put in such a great job, and yeah, we need a bit of work on the setup, but we're leading the championship, and that's the main goal. So full gas 44, and I'm happy to be on the podium in #1 spot.
So a delighted Stephen Odendaal, happy to be on the podium, as we mentioned. He's been on it a few times, but never in that top spot. Top work from the South African, and great of him to thank his team there, because I think he recognises the importance of the work they've done with him over the years. And as we saw from the start, it was Odendaal actually got the whole shot down into turn 1. But it would be Granado who would not have the greatest of starts, who would come through to lead the race. And this is Rossi and Dimas Eki starting from pit lane. Bear in mind, these guys started 11 seconds behind the rest of the field. But then, as you saw there, disaster for Eric Granado as he would crash out while leading by over a second. And yeah, just going back to Eki and Rossi, Eki finishing the points and Rossi 16th. Incredible comeback from those two. But here is Odendaal, and once he got in front, he opened up a gap, and while Remy Gardner stayed with him for a while, it looked like he was going to battle him for the race win. And in fact, Gardner at one point made the move, but then just seemed to have some sort of problem for the Australian. You can see him making a very clean move through on Odendaal. But issues for Gardner meant that effectively any chance he had of the podium disappeared, as he would end up crossing the line in 13th place, which is no mean feat. He was lapping about 6 seconds slower than everyone else after he had the issue. And as you can see, Odendaal bided his time, slipped past up the inside of Gardner once he had that problem, and Tesher in 3rd place just rode superbly to hold on to his position. Nasty crash coming up here, as you see there, which was Senna Yamada being taken out by Pontus Durlan. Both riders, touch wood, unhurt. And Odendaal, as you saw, once he was in front, he went on, and a commanding race victory there, really. 3.8 seconds almost his margin of victory, Harry. And delighted and great to see him thank the team.
Yeah, you know, he was really appreciative, as he said. He wasn't really worried when he was behind Remy. A great ride from this man here, Fellini, as well. Huge disappointment for Pinsash there. We see him sitting out with a problem. Big disappointment for him, but clearly he's one to watch in the coming rounds. Yeah. A bit of a surprise.
Ended up finishing down in 23rd, as you say. Bit of a nightmare for him, same as Gardner, as you say, looking so good for 30th. Look at Odendaal bouncing the bike over the line. Tesher's making his 2nd podium of the day, and we hardly talked about Federico Fellini in the highlights there. Brilliant charge from the Italian to come from about 8th to take that final podium spot, and that is the closest they came to disaster today, Tesher and Odendaal. Good rivals, good friends in this championship, and it was great to see. Listen to that Yahoo, that's how much it meant to the team. And the team, as you say, have stuck by him. Some frustration last year, it had not been able to take the win. But that's Remy Gardner explaining to his dad what happened there.
Does not seem happy about something.
God, he really doesn't. He's grown a lot, hasn't he? Grown? I'm so old. Hasn't he grown? He's really tall now. But yeah, that is Wayne Gardner, 987 500cc world champion, trying to console his son. And we are now set for the podium, and we're going to get another different national anthem. We've had Chilean, South African, Spanish, Brazilian. We've had pretty much everything. It's just superb.
Huge mix. Don't think I've ever heard the South African national anthem outside of a rugby pitch.
Very true. I'm trying to think 2007 Rugby World Cup final was the last time I probably heard it. So yeah, this is It's going to be interesting, but no, brilliant stuff, these three guys, and you can see how much it meant to Odendahl. And I think, do you know what, we often say this with riders, so much of motorcycle racing is confidence. This could really be that thing he needed to kick him off to that next level. We know he's good enough to be riding in the World Championship, to be winning championships like this, but it's all about belief, isn't it?
Yeah, and now Odendahl knows that if Granado does get ahead of him in that next race, he can just settle for second in 1 or 2 races, because Granado is having to make up a 20-point deficit.
Which is huge, isn't it? And as you say, it's that panic of, I see him go, I'm going to take risks. It was interesting to see him say as well, they've still got some work to do on the setup, so it wasn't just, as we say, the bike kind of completely, moving around with him like he likes. There's still stuff they want to work on, and that, as you see on the podium as well, Jacopo Quattaro, the Superstock 600 rider, finishing in 12th. Very good for him, having made the step up. I'm actually really impressed with him, having made the step up this year. The Italian 15-year-old from Rome, that's not bad. 15 years of age, and he's, what was it, 12 2-point scoring finishes? Or no, 17th the first race.
Yeah, definitely not too bad. And as we say, they do have their separate championship where he will also get 25 points in that championship there. Stephen Odendahl with his name on the big check for the first time, and now the South African national anthem.
Un aplauso para Steven Odendahl.
Just saying there, Harry, I've always wanted to be given a giant commemorative check. Never in my life have I achieved greatness.
Well, get out on your Moto2 bike and try and mix it with these boys. Hey, I certainly won't be doing it because it seems hard work.
I'd make Philippe Legallo look quick if I went out racing there. So, guys, that is race 2 of the Moto2 European Championship done and dusted. We'll have a look at the standings very shortly. And in fact, my maths, I did. You'd be so proud of me, Harry. I did my working out in that loud, admittedly. But yes, Odendahl should be leading by 45 points, and I worked out Tess should be second with 36. We're going to see if
that seems legit by my quick mental math. There we go, 3 bottles of Cava and then 1 bottle of fizzy water.
We like that. Yeah, of course, it's incredible when you think of Quattaro there on the stock 600 bike, finishing 12th in a race like that. On what's he on? Is he? He's on a Yamaha R6. Second race in the championship. That's really good work, and mixing it with the big boys and getting stand on the podium. Not bad for a 15-year-old.
Yep, not too bad. And obviously, since this is the second race, they can get a bit of Cava on the leathers, as they don't have to go back out in them. And now here we go, looking at the championship. Looks like your mental maths, was it correct? It was 45 points for Stephen Odendahl, 9 ahead of Alan Tesh with 36. Federico Fellini, 29, solid third for him.
Eric Granado, winner of race 1, crushing out the lead of race 2. He is 25th, 20 points back. Will that be crucial at the end of the year? Cardelas 5th. Theobald Bertin, brilliant stuff from him, is 6th. And Thomas Sixvarsen 7th, and Samuele Cavalieri in 8th. Max Enderlein 9th.
Yeah, pretty tight between those top 3. As we said, work to do for Eric Granado, 20 points back.
This is the man of the day for me. Okay, we're talking about Odendahl's first victory. He deserves the plaudits for that. But Jason Uride, just incredible ride. Finished 14th in race 1, 7th, I believe it was in the end in race 2. Just brilliant from the American. David Sanchez 11th, Ruhu there. Louis Rossi recovering, didn't get a point. Di Masecchi managed to nick the last championship point starting from pit lane. Beat Louis Rossi to the line by 10th of a second.
Decent result, and it looks like Remy Gardner also got some points. Sonny Yamada 19th, thanks to his 15th place finish in race 1.
Yeah, Gardner crossing the line in 13th eventually. Disappointment for him, as we saw displaying to his dad, but great potential for the rest of the season for Gardner. He should take the positives from this, because going forward, we're going to have a hell of a race on our hands next time these guys get together at Moto2 on 29th of May. But up next, we're getting ready for race 2 in the Moto3 Junior World Championship here in Valencia.